Her greedy son threatens her life's work, but her late husband's buried secrets may become the deadliest weapon of all.
I'd never known a betrayal so cold. The hands that once held mine in the garden now sought to tear down the very walls that held our memories, all for their own greed. When Adam walked into my studio that morning, his voice was as sharp as a chisel on stone, and my heart instantly knew this wasn't a social call. The dust motes danced in the morning sun, illuminating a scene that would forever haunt my memories. He didn't even glance at the kiln where my last batch of teacups, still warm from the fire, sat waiting to be glazed. He just looked past me, his eyes fixed on the clay-splattered floor and the silent statues of his father that stood like lonely sentinels in the corners of the room. My name is Eleanor, and at 65 years old, my hands are permanently stained with the earth. For the last 5 years since my husband Thomas passed, this old pottery studio has been my entire world. Each morning, I would rise with the sun, sip my tea from a mug Thomas had made for me 20 years ago, and come out here to the warmth of the kiln and the quiet company of his art. It was a life built on simple rhythms, and the silent dialogue between a widow and the masterpieces of her late husband. Thomas was an artist. Not a famous one, but to me he was a giant. While I worked the spinning wheel, coaxing life from a lump of clay, he sculpted. His creations were abstract, geometric forms he meticulously carved from soapstone and granite. To the untrained eye, they were just strange, heavy shapes. To me, they were a part of him. I saw his quiet strength in every angular line, his fierce protectiveness in every solid mass. For 40 years, this studio was our sanctuary. It was where we shared our dreams, where the scent of clay and oil paint mingled with the sweet aroma of old coffee, and where our love grew as naturally as the moss on the old brick walls. It was here, surrounded by his unfinished projects, that I felt him most acutely. I thought Adam, our only child, understood this. I thought he felt the same reverence for this place. How foolish I was. "Mom, this place is a mess," Adam said, his wife Claire trailing behind him with a look of barely concealed disgust. She pinched her nose as if the smell of earth was an insult to her expensive perfume. "Look at all this stuff. Dad's sculptures are just gathering dust. It's too big, too much for you to manage alone." "It's not a mess. It's a studio," I replied, my voice calm despite the tremor in my chest. "And I can manage just fine. I like the dust. It's a part of our life," Claire scoffed, her disdain a tangible thing in the air between us. "Oh, please, Eleanor. Don't be so dramatic. We're just trying to help. We've found a lovely assisted living community for people your age. It has beautiful gardens and a bingo night every Tuesday." The words felt like a physical blow. The retirement home brochures she had clutched in her hand were a cruel mockery of the life I had built. They had a bingo night, but I had my husband's last unfinished masterpiece. They had beautiful gardens, but I had the soil where his memory still lived. "You can't be serious," I whispered, the air suddenly feeling thin and heavy. "This is my home. This is where your father lived and died. Every corner of this place holds our sacred memories." "Memories are in the heart, Mom, not in a building," Adam replied, with a coldness that would forever sear itself into my memory. His words, a direct echo of something I had once heard, ripped through me like a storm. "Besides, the property is worth a fortune. A developer wants to tear this place down and build luxury condos. It's what's best for everyone. A developer. They wanted to bulldoze my life, my love, my husband's legacy, and replace it with sterile, soulless boxes. The idea was so abhorrent, so vile, that it took my breath away. "I am not leaving," I said, my voice rising with a strength I hadn't realized I possessed. "This is my home. It's where I belong." Claire smiled, a thin, patronizing curve of her lips. "Eleanor, we've already made the decision. Adam has power of attorney. This is for your own good. We're worried about you. You're forgetting things. You almost left the kiln on last week." It was a blatant lie. I had never forgotten to turn off the kiln. I was meticulous about my craft. But Adam and Claire had been subtly building a case against me for months, planting seeds of doubt in the minds of our friends and family, making me question my own reality. They had started with a forgotten doctor's appointment, then a misremembered conversation about a dinner date. Now, they were using my art, my passion, to claim I was incompetent. "I won't sign anything," I said, clutching my mug so tightly I thought it might crack. "I'm not a child and I'm not a fool. You can't do this." "Then we'll have to explore other legal options," Adam said, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. A mental incompetence proceeding, for instance. I felt the world tilt on its axis. My own son, the boy I had raised with love and sacrifice, was threatening to have me declared unfit to manage my own life, all to seize this property for a few more zeros in his bank account. I had worked cleaning houses and sewing clothes, selling my own pottery at local fairs just so he could go to law school. And now, he was using that law degree as a weapon against me. I felt a wave of nausea. "You have 1 week, Mom," Adam said, his voice now a low, chilling threat. "Then we'll do what we have to do." They left as quickly as they came, leaving me alone in the vast emptiness of my studio. The dust motes still danced in the sun, but they no longer looked magical. They looked like floating debris from a shattered world. The unfinished sculptures of my husband looked back at me, their stoic forms a silent testament to a love I had believed was unbreakable. I walked to one of his larger pieces, a massive block of black granite with an intricate swirling pattern carved into its surface. I ran my hand over the cool, smooth stone, a tear finally escaping and tracing a hot path down my cheek. Thomas. How did it come to this? How did the son we raised with so much love become a stranger blinded by greed? That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in my armchair, surrounded by Thomas's sculptures, feeling as though I was in a mausoleum. Each one felt like a tombstone to a life that was now being stolen from me. The next morning, as I walked through the studio, a sense of despair so profound settled over me that I almost gave up. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was just a useless old woman living in the past, incapable of fighting back. Maybe I should just accept my fate and let them dismantle my life. But then, as my hand brushed against the cool stone of one of Thomas's sculptures, a sliver of stubbornness, a fierce flame of dignity, ignited in my heart. I wasn't going to let them trample over me without a fight. Not after a lifetime of sacrifice and devotion. Not without understanding the true value of what I was fighting for. I had to rediscover the man I had loved and the legacy he had truly left behind. The answers, I knew, were hidden in the very art they deemed worthless. I was a ghost in my own home. For days, I wandered the studio, touching the walls and the tools that had been an extension of Thomas's hands. Adam and Claire were due to return soon with a real estate appraiser. A final, cold confirmation of their plan. The humiliation was a raw, festering wound. Yet a new resolve had taken root. I had always seen his sculptures as masterpieces of art. I was about to discover they were the keys to an empire, a secret world he had built to protect me from this very moment. I began my search in the oldest, dustiest corners of his studio. I looked for a document, a will, anything to prove that this place was legally mine and not just a piece of property they could claim. But all I found were stacks of old bills, sketchbooks filled with his complex geometric drawings, and decades of old pottery catalogs. I was looking for a legal document, a piece of paper that would give me power. Instead, I found a small, leather-bound journal hidden behind a loose brick in the wall of his kiln. The cover was blank and the pages were filled with Thomas's meticulous handwriting, but what was written was no ordinary diary. It was a series of codes, diagrams, and cryptic notations, a strange language of his own. I recognized the sketches of his sculptures, but intertwined with them were symbols I had never seen before. Strange sequences of numbers, letters, and what looked like celestial coordinates. I sat on the floor, the old book in my lap, feeling a mixture of confusion and bewilderment. What was this? Was it a record of some strange forgotten project? Or was this a symptom of the very thing Adam and Claire accused me of? Was my husband's mind unraveling in his last months? I shook my head, pushing the fear aside. I knew Thomas. He was a man of immense clarity and purpose. There was a secret here, a hidden message in plain sight. I went back to the sculptures, looking at them not as art but as a puzzle. I looked at the angles, the lines, the way he had meticulously carved each surface. The patterns on the stone seemed to mirror the diagrams in the journal. I ran my hand over the black granite sculpture again. This time, I noticed a tiny, almost invisible engraving near the base, a small six-pointed star that I had never seen before. I flipped through the journal, frantic, until I found a drawing of that same star. Underneath it was a single word: nebula. I had no idea what nebula meant. It could be a reference to a star system, a galaxy, or a name, but it was the first tangible clue. I started to go through every single sculpture in the studio, searching for similar engravings. On a piece of soapstone, I found a small spiral and the word helix. On a large ceramic piece, a crescent moon and the word lumen. Each sculpture, it seemed, was a piece of a larger puzzle. I began to understand. Thomas hadn't just created art. He had created a library of secrets, a silent testament to a hidden life. I felt a surge of adrenaline, a profound sense of purpose. This wasn't about money or revenge. It was about honoring the man I had loved and defending the truth against the lies that were trying to bury it. But what were these secrets? And what did they have to do with the numbers and codes in the journal? I returned to the journal, looking at the first diagram. It was a drawing of the black granite sculpture, Nebula. Next to it were a series of numbers and letters, 51, 492, 0.198, T7. These weren't random. They looked like coordinates in some kind of code. But coordinates for what? The address of a bank? A vault? A digital server? My mind raced, trying to make sense of a world I knew nothing about. I was just an artist, a widow who made teacups. I didn't understand codes and coordinates. My pain and frustration must have been visible on my face because when my neighbor and friend, Clara, dropped by with a casserole, she took one look at me and sat me down. "Eleanor, you look like you haven't slept in a week," she said, her voice full of genuine concern. I had been so isolated in my grief that I had forgotten I had people who cared about me. I told her everything, about Adam and Claire, the forced retirement community, the lawsuit, the threat of being declared incompetent, and the journal. I showed her the cryptic notes and the diagrams. Clara, a retired librarian and a whiz with research, looked at the journal with a curious glint in her eye. She was methodical, patient, and most importantly, she believed me. "These are GPS coordinates," she said, pointing to the numbers. "The first two are latitude and longitude. The T7, that could be anything. A floor, a room, a safe deposit box number. It's some kind of key." We spent the entire evening working. I would read a page and she would try to make sense of it. We searched for nebula, helix, and lumen in reference to art and found nothing. But we did find something else. We found an obscure technical document for a defunct mining company called Ethelred Industries. The document was a technical blueprint for a new form of rare earth mineral extraction. In the blueprint, there were symbols, some of which were eerily similar to the ones in Thomas's journal. I felt a jolt of electricity. It was impossible, but it was all I had. Was Thomas, my quiet, gentle artist, a part of something so much larger? I kept digging. I found other pieces of his art, a series of watercolor paintings, which at first glance seemed to be abstract landscapes, but upon closer inspection, I realized they were maps. Topographical maps of some remote mountainous region. I cross-referenced the coordinates from the journal with the map. They matched. Thomas had been doing more than just sculpting. He had been mapping something, locating something, and encoding it all in his art. The more I discovered, the more I realized I had no idea who my husband really was. The man I had shared a life with for 40 years had a secret world, a silent empire he had built right under my nose. I wasn't just grieving a husband, I was grieving a man I never fully knew. The following morning, I received a cold, formal email from Adam's lawyer. It was a legal notice, demanding I grant them access to the property for the appraisal. They had set a date, Friday. My time was running out. I had to solve this puzzle and find the answers before they took everything away from me. I had to understand Thomas's plan. I had to know what he had left for me. I looked at the black granite sculpture again, this time with a mixture of awe and panic. What was T7? Where did it lead? I had to find a way to access the digital world he had built. a world that was both a key and a fortress, protecting me from the son who had abandoned his own heart. My journey was just beginning. It was not a battle for a house. It was a battle for my dignity, my legacy, and the truth of the man I loved. I had found the coordinates. Now I needed to find the password. It was hidden somewhere in his studio, somewhere so obvious that I had been blind to it for decades. The deadline loomed like a storm on the horizon. My time was running out, and I felt a sense of panic building inside me. I had the coordinates, the maps, the names of the sculptures. I went back to the journal, flipping through the pages, looking for any new clues. I noticed a small, handwritten note at the bottom of one of the pages that simply read, "The combination is not in the pieces themselves, but in their order." The constellation is the key, my heart pounded. The constellation. Thomas had been obsessed with stars. He had a telescope in the corner of his studio, a relic I hadn't touched since he was gone. I looked up at the skylight in the studio, a massive window he had built himself. Every night, we would lie on the floor, our heads resting on his lap, and look up at the stars. I remembered how he would point out constellations, telling me their ancient stories. The constellations weren't just in the sky. They were a part of his work. I went through the sculptures, looking for any pattern. I found more carvings: a bear, Ursa, a warrior, Orion, a swan, Cygnus. The pieces were scattered all over the studio, in no particular order. The coordinates I had found were for the first 3 pieces: nebula, helix, and lumen. I looked up at the skylight and then back at the journal. The drawings in the journal showed the constellations from a specific viewpoint, a particular perspective. I ran to the telescope and adjusted the settings to a position he had marked with a small star. The view was of a part of the sky I had never paid attention to before, a collection of faint stars that, when connected, formed a unique shape. I realized that the order of the sculptures was based on their position in that specific part of the night sky. The first piece, nebula, was the closest. Helix was next, and lumen was the furthest. The order of the clues was hidden in the constellations. It was so simple, so elegant, so very Thomas. The next clue in the journal was an address. A small, unassuming building in the heart of the city. We weren't looking for a will anymore. We were looking for a physical place, a secret office or a safe deposit box. My mind raced with possibilities. It could be anything. A lawyer's office, a bank, a holding company. But the most important clue was still missing: the password. The journal didn't have any more coordinates. The next entry was a diagram of his old computer, which sat in the corner of his studio, unplugged, gathering dust. The screen was cracked, and I had always assumed it was just a broken old machine. But the diagram in his journal showed something I had never seen before: a hidden compartment, a small button, and a series of wires that connected to a sculpture. The diagram showed that the computer was a kind of a terminal, a gateway to a larger system. I went to the computer and, with a trembling hand, I turned it over. I found a small latch on the side, a hidden compartment I had never noticed before. Inside, there was a small, dusty USB drive and a note with a single word on it: T7, T7. I finally understood. It wasn't a room number or a code. It was the name of his first and most valuable sculpture, a piece he had never shown to anyone. I had found it in a hidden compartment in the studio, and it was a small, angular piece of titanium. The T stood for titanium. The 7 stood for the number of angles he had meticulously carved. The T7 sculpture was the final key, the master key. It was a digital key, a tangible representation of the password. I plugged the USB drive into the computer, and a screen lit up with a single black and white image of a galaxy. Underneath the image, there was a single line of text: password? I looked at the T7 sculpture, a piece of metal with 7 distinct angles. I started to type in combinations of numbers, letters, and symbols, but nothing worked. The password was the sculpture itself. I realized the only way to unlock the drive was to connect the sculpture to the computer. I looked at the diagram in the journal again. The diagram showed that I had to connect the T7 sculpture to the computer using a special port. I I found the port on the computer and used a series of wires to connect the sculpture. The moment I connected the sculpture, the computer's screen flickered and a new screen appeared. It was a database, a complex network of folders and files, all encrypted and locked with a password. But the computer didn't ask me for a password. It asked for a key. The journal had a diagram of a sequence of the sculptures and their corresponding key. The first key was a combination of the first 3 sculptures in a certain order. I had the order now. I went back to the sculptures, arranged them in the correct order, and typed in the sequence. A new screen appeared on the computer. It was a personal message from Thomas. A video, to be exact. I pressed play, and my heart stopped. Thomas was there, his face on the screen, looking at me with those soft, gentle eyes I loved so much. "Eleanor," he said, his voice raspy and full of love, "if you're watching this, it means I am no longer with you, and you have found this treasure I kept for you." My eyes filled with tears as I listened to his voice. He had known this moment would come. He had foreseen everything. "I had to keep this a secret from you," he continued. "I wanted to protect you from the greed of the world. The sculptures, they are not just art. They are the keys to a vast network of investments, properties, and companies I built in secret. I built a silent empire for us for your golden years, and I did it all to protect you." I felt a wave of emotions, a profound sense of loss for the man who had kept so many secrets, but also a deep gratitude for the love he had so meticulously planned to protect me. He had foreseen Adam's betrayal. He had seen the greed in his eyes. The video ended with a final, heartbreaking message. "Use this power wisely, my love. Not to hurt, but to protect yourself. And to teach. My husband had given me more than money. He had given me a weapon, a shield, and a purpose. And now I had to learn how to use it. I had to learn to navigate a world that I knew nothing about. I had to become the person he had always believed I could be." The clock was ticking. The real estate appraiser was coming in 2 days. I had to use the silent power Thomas had given me to fight back and reclaim my life. The appraiser walked through the studio as if it were a tomb. He didn't know he was standing in the middle of a vault, and I was about to open it. Friday morning arrived, heavy and gray. A light rain tapped against the skylight of the studio, a somber drumbeat for the confrontation to come. Adam and Claire arrived with a man in a pristine gray suit, a real estate appraiser named Mr. Henderson. He carried a clipboard and a camera, his face a blank mask of professional detachment. The air was thick with tension. Adam looked around the studio, a sneer on his face. "See, Mr. Henderson? All this junk. My father was a hobbyist. My mother is living in the past. It's for her own good. We're going to sell this place to a developer. They'll clear all this out." He gestured dismissively toward Thomas's sculptures. Mr. Henderson nodded, his eyes scanning the room, his gaze resting for a moment on the black granite sculpture. Nebula. Adam didn't notice the flicker of curiosity in his eyes, but I did. I knew my husband's art was unique. It was the one thing he had that could captivate anyone who had an appreciation for modern art. Claire scoffed. "Please, Mr. Henderson, don't waste your time. We've already had a few people look at this stuff. It's worthless. We're just looking to get a fair price for the property." My heart, which had been a drum of fear for the past few days, was now a steady, determined beat. I looked at the appraiser, a man I had never met before, but I knew his type. He was a professional, a man who saw the world in numbers and property deeds. He was here to do a job, not to judge. I decided to make this personal. "You are right, Mr. Henderson. This property is worth a lot of money. But it's not because of the land or the location. It's because of what's in this room." My voice was calm, a stark contrast to the agitated energy of Adam and Claire. Adam laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Mom, don't start. We already talked about this. You're not going to make a scene." "I'm not making a scene," I replied, my eyes fixed on Mr. Henderson. "I'm telling the truth. You see these sculptures, these works of art my husband left behind? They are not just dusty old relics. They are the keys to a silent empire. This room isn't just a studio. It's a treasury." Claire scoffed, her disdain a tangible thing in the air. "Oh, please, Eleanor. A treasury? What is she talking about, Adam? This is embarrassing. My mother is talking about her imaginary treasure. We should just go. Mr. Henderson, however, was intrigued. He walked closer to the black granite sculpture. He ran his hand over the surface, his fingers tracing the intricate lines. This is a beautiful piece, he murmured, a genuine note of appreciation in his voice. The texture, the balance. It's quite remarkable. That's what I've been trying to tell you, I said. Every piece has a story and a secret. This one, for instance, has a secret that will surprise you. I walked to a small table and picked up a laptop I had set up earlier. I had spent all night organizing the files Thomas had left for me. I had a plan, a meticulously crafted strategy to unmask them. This is a video and a document. And a deed. All of them are connected to this sculpture. I'll show you what this seemingly worthless art is really worth. I pressed play on the video I had found on the USB drive. Thomas's face appeared on the screen, his gentle eyes looking into the camera. Eleanor, if you are watching this, it means you have found the truth. This sculpture, it is not just art. It is the key to a vast network of investments. The code is in the angles, and the key is in the titanium. Adam and Claire stared at the screen, their faces a mixture of confusion and disbelief. What is this? Adam muttered. A video? What is this supposed to prove? It's the truth, I said calmly. The truth you were trying to bury. You see, Mr. Henderson, my husband wasn't just a sculptor. He was a visionary. He founded a company, Ethelred Industries, a small, unproven company he built in secret. He invested every spare dime in it. He took a huge risk and it paid off. That company is now a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and he documented it all in his sculptures. Each piece is a key, a map, a deed to a new part of his empire. Claire laughed, a sharp, nervous sound. This is ridiculous. This is just an old woman's fantasy. There's no company. There's no money. This is a pathetic attempt to stop us, is it? I said, and with a flourish, I opened a digital file on the laptop. It was a property deed, a legal document proving ownership of a commercial building in the heart of the city. I pointed to the signature on the deed. It was Thomas's. I then showed them a recent bank statement. The amount was astronomical. Adam's and Claire's faces went pale as they read the numbers. The deed was for a commercial building they rented for their own business. The business they thought they had built with their own hard work. The building they thought they owned. It was all a lie. I had been their silent landlord for years. That's impossible, Adam muttered, his voice trembling. We pay our rent on time. It goes to a property management company. It does, I replied, a small, knowing smile on my face. And that company deposits it directly into an account your father set up for me. It's a legacy, Adam. A legacy of love and a silent warning. He knew one day you might turn on me. He planned for this. He protected me from you from this moment. You don't own a single thing in that building. And now, you're trying to take this. A piece of art that is 1,000 times more valuable than you could ever imagine. You've been paying me for years without knowing it, and I was just a ghost in the machine. Now the ghost is here to reclaim her life, her legacy, and her art. He called my sanity into question. I was about to call his entire life into question. His arrogance was about to meet the unwavering force of my husband's silent will. The silence in the studio was deafening. Adam's face was a mask of panic and rage, Claire's a reflection of his own terror. They looked at the bank statements, at the deed, and then at me, their eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and fear. This is a fake, Adam finally managed to choke out. A forgery. You're an old woman, Mom. You don't know what you're doing. You're being manipulated by someone. This is a pathetic trick. I simply smiled. You're free to have them verified, Adam. In fact, I insist you do. My husband was a meticulous man. Every document is perfectly legal. Every signature, every deed is real. You've been living a lie for the past 5 years. You've been living in a building I owned, making a living from a business you thought was yours. You're the one who is being manipulated, not me. Mr. Henderson, the appraiser, had been watching the entire scene with a quiet intensity. He had been a silent observer, but now he spoke. Mr. Carter, I'm an art historian by trade, a specialist in postmodern sculpture. I appraise real estate to make a living, but art is my passion. And I've seen this style before. The intricacy, the geometric precision, the hidden codes. There is only one artist in the world who did this kind of work, an elusive genius who went by the name T7. My heart skipped a beat. T7. The name of the sculpture, the key to the entire empire. Mr. Henderson looked at me with a new sense of respect, a recognition of something that had been hidden in plain sight. T7's work has been a myth in the art world for years. His pieces have never been sold. No one knows who he is. We know his work because his pieces have been anonymously donated to some of the world's most exclusive art museums. There's a rumor that his work contains encrypted data, a kind of hidden ledger. But no one has ever been able to crack the code. Until now, Adam looked at me, a horrified realization dawning on his face. You're telling me my father was a world-famous artist? More than that, Adam, I replied, my voice now full of a quiet power. He was an architect of a silent empire. He was a visionary, and you were going to turn his masterpiece into luxury condos. You were going to tear down his legacy to build your own. The appraiser, now a silent accomplice, looked at Adam and Claire with an air of disgust. He had come here to appraise a property, but he had discovered a truth far more valuable. I'm sorry, but I can't appraise this property. The value is not in the land. It's in the art. I'll be leaving now. He turned and walked out, leaving Adam and Claire alone in the chaos they had created. Adam collapsed onto a chair, his face buried in his hands. Claire stood there, her mouth agape, unable to speak. The silence was broken only by the sound of the rain tapping against the skylight, and the rhythmic sound of my heart beating with a new sense of purpose. You have 2 hours, I said to them, my voice devoid of emotion. 2 hours to get your things out of my building. 2 hours to leave my property. Mom, you can't do this, Adam pleaded, his voice cracking. I'm your son. We're family. Family? I asked, the word tasting like ash on my tongue. Is that what you call it? When you try to have your mother declared incompetent? When you try to steal her home? When you try to destroy the legacy of the man who gave you everything? Claire, who had been silent for so long, finally spoke. He made me do it, Eleanor. He said he would leave me if I didn't. He said he couldn't stand to see you living here alone. He said you were a danger to yourself. And you believed him? I asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of sadness and fury. You know so little about your own mother that you would believe him over your own heart? You would believe a man who 5 minutes ago was trying to take everything from you. A man who, just as I suspected, you don't even own a business with. It was all a lie. Adam looked up, his face a mess of tears and snot. He was going to take everything from me. He said he would ruin me. He said he would leave me with nothing. I had no choice. No choice? I asked, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. You had a choice, Adam. You had a choice to stand by your family. You had a choice to be a good son. But you chose greed. You chose a man who was using you to hurt me. Adam didn't respond. He just sat there defeated, his head in his hands. Claire, however, looked at me with something that resembled gratitude. Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you for opening my eyes. I was so blind. I was so afraid of losing him that I was willing to lose you. I'm so sorry. I knew her apology was sincere, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. The pain was still too raw. The betrayal was too deep. I had to let them go. I had to let them find their own way. I'm not a judge, I said. I'm a mother. And a mother's love is not a weapon. It's a gift, and you have to learn to earn it back. You have 2 hours to get out of my building. Then we'll talk about what comes next. And after that, you're on your own. You have to learn to stand on your own 2 feet and to rebuild your life. Only then can we talk about what it means to be a family again. The silence of the studio was once a comfort. Now it was a profound void, a space where the ghost of a mother's love wrestled with the specter of her son's betrayal. The reconciliation would not be a single moment, but a slow, painful dance of 2 souls trying to find their way back to each other. The weeks that followed were a surreal blur. I hired a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Victoria, who helped me navigate the complex legal world of my husband's silent empire. She verified every document, every deed, every stock certificate. The fortune was real. I was a multimillionaire, an heiress to a legacy I never knew existed. The studio was my sanctuary again, but the joy of my pottery, the peaceful rhythm of my life, was gone. I hadn't heard from Adam or Claire. Part of me, the part that was still a mother, was worried. The other part, the one that had been humiliated and betrayed, was grateful for the silence. I had told them to leave to find their own way, and they had done exactly that. One afternoon, as I was glazing a teapot, the doorbell rang. It was the postman with a registered letter. It was from Adam. My hands trembled as I opened it. It was a formal apology written by a lawyer, full of legal jargon and polite phrases. It was an apology without emotion, a testament to the fact that he was still a stranger to me, a man who spoke the language of contracts and courtrooms, not of the heart. The letter concluded with a plea for me to reconsider, a formal request for reconciliation. It was a step, but it wasn't enough. It was an empty gesture, a hollow promise. It was not the raw emotional confession I needed. I put the letter in a drawer, a sad and quiet testimony to the chasm that had formed between us. A week later, the doorbell rang again. I was surprised to see Adam and Claire standing on my porch. They looked different. Adam was wearing a simple, worn-out t-shirt and jeans. Claire was in a simple cotton dress, her hair in a messy bun. There was no trace of the arrogance or the disdain they had carried with them for so long. They looked humbled and tired. I didn't invite them in. I just stood there waiting for them to speak. "Mom," Adam said, his voice soft and hesitant. We came to talk. Not with lawyers, just with you." "What is there to talk about, Adam?" I asked, my voice colder than I intended. "You made your choice. You chose greed over family. You chose a man who was using you to hurt me. You chose to try to destroy the life your father and I built." "We know," Claire said, tears welling up in her eyes. "We know we were wrong. We lost everything. The building was foreclosed. The business went under. We had to move into a small apartment. Adam had to take a job at a coffee shop just to make ends meet. I felt a pang of something, not pity, but a profound sadness. They had been so arrogant, so convinced of their own brilliance that they had lost everything in a moment of hubris. "And what do you expect from me?" I asked. "Do you expect me to feel sorry for you? To give you a handout? To pretend that none of this ever happened?" "No," Adam said, looking me in the eye for the first time in months. "We don't expect anything. We just want to apologize. A real apology. We know we were wrong. We know we hurt you. And we want to earn your trust back. We want to work for you. We want to prove that we've changed. We want to show you that we've learned our lesson." I looked at them, and for the first time in a long time, I saw a flicker of the people they once were. The boy I had raised, the girl who had once loved him, I saw the shame in their eyes, the genuine repentance. But the pain was still there. The memory of their betrayal was a hot, angry coal in my heart. I couldn't just forgive them. It was a wound that needed time to heal. It was a wound they had to help me heal. "Work for me?" I asked, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "You want to work for me? What could you possibly do for me? You have no skills. You have no experience. You've never worked a day in your life." "We'll do anything," Claire said, her voice a desperate plea. "We'll clean. We'll organize. We'll do whatever you need us to do. We just want to be a part of your life again. We just want to be a family again." I closed my eyes for a moment, the weight of their words a heavy burden. I had to decide. Could I ever trust them again? Could I ever look at them without remembering the pain they had caused me? I thought about Thomas and his message. Not to hurt, but to protect and to teach. This was my chance to teach them. To show them that there was a different way. That a life of purpose was more valuable than a life of greed. "Okay," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I have a lot of work to do. I need help organizing all the files my husband left behind. I need someone to help me catalog all the art. And I need someone to help me start a new foundation. A foundation for artists. A foundation for people who have been wronged. If you want to help, you can start tomorrow. But I'm warning you, this is not a handout. This is not a chance to get rich. This is a chance to earn back what you've lost. This is a chance to prove that you've changed. You have to earn my trust, and it's not going to be easy. Adam and Claire looked at me, their faces full of a fragile, hesitant hope. The long road to forgiveness had just begun, and I had no idea where it would lead. I watched them from a distance, two lost souls trying to find their way back home. I didn't know if it was possible to turn the bitterness of betrayal into the sweet nectar of forgiveness, but I was willing to try. My husband's legacy wasn't just money. It was a testament to the power of transformation. The following morning, they arrived promptly at 8, looking nervous and uncertain. Adam was wearing a clean polo shirt and work pants, Claire in a simple skirt and blouse. They looked like two strangers. They started with the easiest tasks, sorting through Thomas's old files, organizing his art supplies, and cleaning the studio. I was surprised by their dedication. They worked without complaint, their movements slow and meticulous. They didn't speak much, their silence a testament to their shame. But I was watching every move, every gesture, every attempt they made to prove they were different. After a few days, I saw a change. Adam, who had always been so dismissive of his father's art, began to look at the sculptures with a newfound respect. He ran his hands over the smooth stone, his fingers tracing the intricate lines. He asked me about Thomas's process, about the tools he used, about the meaning behind the shapes. I told him everything. I told him about the hours Thomas would spend on a single piece, the way he would lose himself in his work, the way he would talk to his creations as if they were alive. I told him about the codes, the maps, the coordinates, and the secret empire he had built. Adam listened, his face a mixture of awe and regret. He was finally seeing his father for who he really was. Not just a quiet artist, but a silent giant, a visionary. Claire, meanwhile, was a natural with the paperwork for the foundation. She had a knack for organization, for turning chaos into order. She helped me create a mission statement, a logo, a website. We decided to call it the Phoenix Foundation, a new life rising from the ashes of an old one. It was a fitting name. We had a plan, to use the money Thomas had left me to provide grants, mentorships, and studio space for young artists who were struggling, who were undervalued, who were like Thomas, a quiet genius waiting to be discovered. Claire's enthusiasm for the project was genuine. She wasn't just doing it to earn my trust back. She was doing it because she had found a purpose, a sense of meaning she had never known before. The days turned into weeks. The weeks turned into months. The silence between us began to fill with words, with laughter, with shared meals. We talked about everything and nothing. We talked about Thomas, about the past, and about the future. I told them about the pain, the humiliation, the nights I couldn't sleep, and they listened. They didn't interrupt. They didn't try to make excuses. They just listened, and in their listening I found a flicker of forgiveness. It wasn't a grand, dramatic gesture. It was a slow, quiet process, like the gentle erosion of a cliff, the slow crumbling of a wall that had stood between us for so long. One afternoon, as we were organizing Thomas's old sketchbooks, I found a small hidden drawing. It was a drawing of a family, a mother, a father, and a small boy holding hands, standing in front of a house. The house was a rough sketch, but I recognized it immediately. It was my house, my home, and the people in the drawing were us. Thomas had drawn it years ago, a simple, heartfelt drawing of the life he had built for us. My eyes welled up with tears. I showed it to Adam. He looked at it, his face a mix of emotions. I never knew, he whispered. I never knew how much he loved this place. I never knew how much he loved us. He was finally seeing it. He was finally understanding the true value of what he had tried to destroy. It wasn't just a house. It was a home, a sanctuary, a sacred space. It was the physical manifestation of our family's love. And he had almost torn it down. He had almost thrown away a treasure he couldn't even see. I put my hand on his shoulder, and for the first time in a very long time, I hugged him. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. The hug said it all. It said, I see you. I see the man you are becoming, and I'm willing to give you a chance. The journey to forgiveness was far from over. There were still old wounds, still painful memories. But for the first time, I felt a sense of hope. I felt like we were a family again, not because of a piece of paper or a shared last name, but because of a shared purpose. We were working together to build something beautiful, something meaningful, something that would honor the man who had taught us all a lesson about love, legacy, and the true meaning of wealth. I had found my way back to my son, not through revenge, but through the quiet, powerful force of forgiveness. It was the most valuable lesson of all. My life was a symphony of unexpected harmony. But then a letter arrived, a summons to a courtroom, and I felt the cold fear of the past return. The stage was set for a final public confrontation, a reckoning with the ghosts I thought I had left behind. The months that followed were a symphony of quiet, unexpected harmony. The Phoenix Foundation was officially launched, with Adam and Claire running the day-to-day operations. They had become a different kind of person. They were dedicated, passionate, and most importantly, they were happy. They had found their purpose. The letter was from a law firm representing a man named Mr. Reynolds, a former business partner of Thomas's. He was suing me for what he claimed was a large sum of money he was owed from a venture he and Thomas had started years ago. The lawsuit was a convoluted mess, a tangled web of lies and deceit. Mr. Reynolds was a man with a reputation for being ruthless and manipulative. A man who had also, I discovered, been a mentor to Adam in his early days. The timing was no coincidence. Mr. Reynolds had heard of my newfound wealth and, sensing an opportunity, had decided to make his move. He knew I was an old woman, an artist with no experience in the world of business. He thought I would be an easy target. I felt a pang of fear. I had faced Adam and Claire, but this was a different kind of battle. This was a battle against a professional manipulator, a man who had years of experience in the cutthroat world of corporate finance. I was scared, but I was not alone. Adam and Claire, now my allies, my partners, stood by my side. They were no longer the arrogant, greedy people they once were. They were my team, and we were going to face this together. The day of the trial arrived, heavy and gray. The air in the courtroom was thick with tension. The room was filled with lawyers, their faces a sea of grim professional detachment. I was there, a simple woman in a black dress, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. Adam and Claire were there too, sitting behind me, their faces a reflection of my own fear. Mr. Reynolds and his lawyer sat opposite us, their faces a mask of confidence and arrogance. The judge, an old man with a kind, wrinkled face, walked in and took his seat. He looked at the room, his eyes scanning the faces, and then his gaze rested on me. My heart stopped. I knew that face. I had seen it before. Mrs. Eleanor Carter, he asked, his voice soft and familiar. Yes, Your Honor, I replied, my voice trembling. He took off his glasses and looked at me, his eyes filled with a deep, profound recognition. I know you, he said, a note of disbelief in his voice. You were a secretary at my father's law firm 20 years ago. You helped me when I was an intern. You brought me coffee when I worked late. You were always so kind to me. The entire courtroom fell silent. Adam and Claire looked at me in amazement. Mr. Reynolds and his lawyer exchanged panicked glances. They knew they had lost before they had even begun. This was a man with a moral compass, a man who had a history with me, a history of kindness and generosity. A man who was about to be my judge. Your Honor, I believe this constitutes a conflict of interest, Mr. Reynolds' lawyer interjected, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and rage. There is no conflict. Mr. Peterson, the judge replied, his voice now firm and unwavering. There is only justice. And after reviewing the documents presented, it is clear that Mr. Reynolds has been the only one manipulating the situation. Your lawsuit is a pathetic attempt to extort money from an innocent woman. The verdict was swift and decisive. The judge dismissed the lawsuit, ordered Mr. Reynolds to pay all legal costs, and issued a restraining order against him. It was a complete and total victory. When we left the courtroom, I was shaking. The judge, Judge Morales, walked toward me, a smile on his face. "Mrs. Carter," he said, "I never forgot your kindness. You told me that one day I would be a great judge. You told me to follow my heart. You told me that kindness would always come back to me. You were right. You are a good woman, Mrs. Carter. You deserve to be happy. I am so sorry for what you have been through." I hugged him, tears streaming down my face. I had been so lost in my own grief, my own pain, that I had forgotten the people I had helped along the way. I had forgotten that kindness was not a weakness but a strength. I had forgotten that the good I had done in the world would always come back to me in the most unexpected ways. I looked at Adam and Claire, their faces a mixture of awe and relief. They had witnessed it all. They had witnessed the power of kindness. And in that moment, I knew they had learned the most important lesson of all. The victory wasn't in the courtroom. It was in the quiet moments that followed. In the garden of my studio, a place that had once been a symbol of my loneliness, a new life began to bloom, nourished by the tender hands of a son and a daughter-in-law, who had finally learned the true meaning of family. The months after the trial were a whirlwind of activity. The Phoenix Foundation, now a huge success, had a waiting list of artists who wanted to be a part of our program. Adam, with his sharp legal mind, was an invaluable asset. He was meticulous, dedicated, and most importantly, he was passionate about helping others. He had found his purpose, his calling. Claire, with her creativity and knack for organization, was a natural at running the day-to-day operations. She was the heart of the foundation, the one who listened to the artists' stories, who understood their struggles, who nurtured their dreams. My studio was no longer a place of quiet solitude. It was a hub of creativity, a space filled with the laughter of young artists, the hum of pottery wheels, the rhythmic tapping of chisels on stone. The students, who had come from all walks of life, had found a sanctuary, a place where they could express themselves without fear of judgment. It was a place where art was not just a hobby, but a form of therapy, a way of healing old wounds and finding a new path. It was a place where the legacy of Thomas lived on, not in the cold, silent statues, but in the vibrant, living art of the new generation. I had found my way back to my art, too. The joy was back in my hands. I was making teacups again, but this time, they were not just a form of solace. They were a form of celebration, a symbol of a life that was finally whole again. One afternoon, as I was working in the garden, a handsome older man with a kind smile walked up to me. He introduced himself as James, a retired professor of art history who had heard about the foundation and wanted to volunteer. We talked for hours, our conversation flowing as naturally as a stream. He was a man with a passion for art, a man who had a quiet strength, a man who saw the beauty in the small, everyday things. We started meeting for coffee, for walks in the park, for talks about art and life and everything in between. He was not a replacement for Thomas. He was a new chapter, a new beginning. He was a reminder that life was full of second chances, that happiness could be found in the most unexpected places. One evening, as we were sitting in the garden, watching the sunset, Adam and Claire walked toward me. They sat on the grass, their hands clasped together. "Mom," Adam said, his voice soft and full of emotion, I don't know how to thank you. You gave us a second chance. You gave us a purpose. You gave us our life back." "You did that yourself, Adam," I replied. "You were the one who chose to change. You were the one who chose to learn. I just gave you the opportunity." "No," Claire said, her eyes welling up with tears. "You gave us a reason to change. You showed us that there was something more important than money. You showed us the true meaning of family. We were so lost. We were so blind. We were so consumed by greed that we were willing to hurt the people we loved. We were willing to hurt you, and we are so sorry." I looked at them, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a complete and total sense of peace. The pain was gone. The betrayal was gone. The love that had been buried under layers of hurt and resentment was finally free. "I forgive you," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I forgave you the day I saw you fighting to get your dignity back. I forgave you the day I saw you helping others. You have become the people I always knew you could be, and I am so proud of you." Adam and Claire hugged me, and for a moment, we were a family again. A family that had been broken, but had been rebuilt, stronger and more beautiful than before. The garden, once a symbol of my loneliness, was now a symbol of our new life, a new life that was nourished by forgiveness and love. My story had no end, only new beginnings. The woman who had been a quiet artist, a betrayed mother, a silent heiress, was now something more. She was a testament to the power of kindness, the resilience of the human spirit, and the enduring truth that the most valuable treasures are not the ones we possess, but the ones we create from the ashes of our pain. And if my story touched your heart, please remember that true strength lies not in how much you have, but in how much you can give. Subscribe to our channel and join our community of purpose. We are here to show you that it's never too late to begin again. Years have passed since the day I discovered Thomas's secret. The Phoenix Foundation, which started as a small, local initiative, is now a global success. We have helped countless artists, provided them with a platform to share their work, and given them a second chance at life. The small garden behind my studio, once a symbol of my loneliness, is now a bustling hub of creativity, a place where the future is being built. One piece of art at a time. My life, which had once felt like an old, faded painting, is now a vibrant, colorful masterpiece. I have found happiness with James, a man who loves me for who I am, a man who sees my heart, my art, and my soul. One afternoon, as I was working in the studio, I looked at the black granite sculpture, Nebula, the one that started it all. It was no longer just a sculpture. It was a symbol of my journey, a testament to the man who had loved me enough to plan for a future he wouldn't be a part of. A future he had protected me from the very son he had raised. The door to the studio opened, and Adam and Claire walked in. They were no longer the arrogant, greedy people they once were. They were my children, my family. They were happy. Adam was a man of purpose, a man who had found his calling in helping others. Claire, a woman of grace, had found her voice in the art she had once deemed worthless. "Mom," Adam said, his voice soft and full of emotion. We have something to tell you. Claire and we've decided to move on. We've been offered an incredible opportunity to open a new branch of the foundation in another city. We're going to help even more people. We're going to take what we've learned from you and your father, and we're going to share it with the world." I smiled. It was a bittersweet moment. I was going to miss them. But I was so proud of them. They had found their wings. They were ready to fly. "I know," I said. "I'm so proud of you both. You have become the people I always knew you could be, and I am so, so happy for you." "There's one more thing," Claire said, her eyes welling up with tears. We want to give you something. We want to give you this. This studio? It's a gift. We want you to have it back." I shook my head. "It's already mine," I said. "It's always been mine." "No," Adam said. "It's a different kind of mine. It's a gift of love. We want to give it to you. We want you to have it. It's a symbol of our love for you. It's a symbol of our gratitude. We want you to have a place where you can create, where you can be happy, a place where you can be a quiet artist, a woman who is loved." I looked at the studio, and for the first time in a very long time, I saw it for what it truly was. It wasn't a place of betrayal. It was a place of love. It was a place of forgiveness. It was a place where my family had been broken, but had been rebuilt, stronger and more beautiful than before. I sat on my pottery wheel, the old, familiar feeling of clay in my hands. I looked at the world I had created, the world that was a testament to my husband's love, to my son's journey, to my own resilience. It was a world that was a beautiful symphony of unexpected harmony, a world that was a testament to the power of kindness, the resilience of the human spirit, and the enduring truth that the most valuable treasures are not the ones we possess, but the ones we create from the ashes of our pain. The best part of my story, I realized, wasn't the ending. It was the unwritten chapter, the one that was yet to come.